In recent days, news has gone unnoticed by many, but it could completely change the global geopolitical landscape. The Trump administration released a strategic document that practically decrees the end of the historic alliance between the United States and Europe. According to the new American National Security Plan, Europe faces a threat of civilizational extinction and could become unrecognizable in less than 20 years. I'm going to explain what's really happening behind this historic rupture. This statement is not just common political criticism. We're talking about a radical change in American foreign policy that could redefine international relations for the next 50 years. The official document textually states that if current trends continue, the European continent could become completely unrecognizable within 2 decades. To understand the gravity of this statement, I need to contextualize what this means in practice. Since the end of World War II, the transatlantic alliance has been the pillar of the Western world order. The United States and Europe together built NATO, the Bretton Woods system, and practically the entire international security architecture we know today. Now, for the first time in 80 years, Americans are publicly questioning this strategic partnership. The new American strategy rigorously follows the America First doctrine, which prioritizes exclusively the national interests of the United States above any historic alliance. Trump and his team classify current Europe as politically weak, decadent, and incapable of making correct decisions, especially on migration and national security issues. These are not subtle diplomatic criticisms, but direct and public attacks on the European governance model. The strategic document goes beyond criticism and presents a concrete intervention proposal. The United States intends to explicitly support European leaders in political movements that are aligned with American strategic vision. In practice, this means Washington could begin financing and supporting far-right political forces and nationalist movements within Europe itself. Imagine the impact of this on European elections in the coming years. The military issue is also at the center of this rupture. The plan provides for a complete reassessment of American military presence worldwide, with a possible withdrawal from theaters considered less relevant to United States security. This includes American military bases on European territory that have existed for decades. NATO, which was always considered untouchable, is now being openly questioned. The American document suggests that within a few decades, NATO members could become predominantly non-European. This statement is revolutionary because it questions the very essence of the Atlantic Alliance. If European countries lose irrelevance within NATO, the entire Western collective defense structure could collapse. Trump has already demonstrated in practice how he intends to implement this new strategy. He publicly criticized European migration policy, calling it too politically correct and pointing to a decadent Europe led by governors he classified as stupid. These statements are not improvisations or provocations, but part of a deliberate political pressure strategy. On the Ukraine war issue, Trump directly questioned the effectiveness of the European response and defended holding elections in the country, openly criticizing President Zelensky. This shows that Americans no longer consider Europe a reliable partner even on European continental security issues. The European response has been cautious, but reveals how unprepared the bloc is for this new reality. Antonio Costa, President of the European Council, and Kaja Kallas, Head of European Union Diplomacy, tried to maintain the partnership, but implicitly recognized that some American criticisms are true. Kallas downplayed the alarmist tone about civilizational extinction, but admitted that Europe needs to strengthen its sovereignty and strategic autonomy. This European admission is significant because it confirms that the bloc does not possess a common strategy strong enough to respond to this American shift. For decades, Europe became accustomed to depending on the American security umbrella, and now needs to quickly develop independent military and strategic capabilities. The new American strategy also signals a global geopolitical realignment. The United States is prioritizing the Western Hemisphere, especially in combating drug trafficking and controlling migration in Latin America. This means American attention and resources are definitively shifting from Europe to other regions considered more strategic. International analysts see this change as a hard blow to Europe, which could find itself isolated in an increasingly multipolar world. China and Russia will certainly take advantage of this rupture to expand their influence on the European continent, creating a power vacuum that could be filled by rival powers to the United States. Explicit American support for political forces aligned with Washington could dramatically intensify internal divisions in Europe. Nationalist and far-right movements in countries like France, Germany, Italy, and Poland could receive American financing and logistical support, completely altering the continental political balance. This direct interference in European internal politics represents an unprecedented rupture in transatlantic relations. Traditionally, even during diplomatic crises, the United States and Europe mutually respected their internal political processes. Now, Americans are signaling they intend to actively shape the European political scenario according to their interests. The economic consequences of this rupture are not yet fully visible, but could be devastating. Europe depends enormously on transatlantic trade and technological cooperation with the United States. A deterioration in political relations will inevitably affect commercial partnerships and bilateral investments. For Europe, the challenge is now twofold: rapidly develop strategic autonomy without completely losing the American partnership, and simultaneously resist attempts at external political interference. This requires a level of coordination and political determination that the European bloc has rarely demonstrated in its recent history. The rupture in the United States-Europe alliance marks the end of an era and the beginning of a period of unprecedented geopolitical uncertainty since the end of the Cold War. Europe faces the challenge of completely reinventing itself to maintain its relevance in a world where it can no longer automatically count on American support. The upcoming European elections and strategic decisions of the coming months will determine whether the continent can successfully navigate this new reality or confirm the pessimistic prognosis of the Trump administration. The implications extend far beyond traditional diplomatic channels. European defense capabilities, long dependent on NATO's American umbrella, now face urgent reassessment. Military spending across European nations will likely increase dramatically as countries scramble to fill security gaps previously covered by American guarantees. Germany finds itself in a particularly precarious position. As Europe's economic powerhouse, it must balance its historical ties with the United States against growing pressure to lead European independence efforts. The German industrial sector, heavily integrated with American supply chains, faces potential disruption that could ripple through the entire European economy. France, under Macron's leadership, has consistently advocated for European strategic autonomy, but even Paris appears unprepared for such an abrupt American withdrawal of support. The French nuclear deterrent, while independent, cannot single-handedly guarantee European security against emerging global threats. Eastern European nations face the most acute dilemma. Countries like Poland and the Baltic states have viewed American military presence as essential protection against Russian expansionism. Trump's apparent indifference to their security concerns creates a dangerous power vacuum that Moscow may seek to exploit. The technology sector represents another critical vulnerability. European companies rely heavily on American tech infrastructure, from cloud services to semiconductor supply chains. A deteriorating relationship could accelerate Chinese technological influence in Europe, creating new dependencies that may prove equally problematic. European financial markets have already begun reflecting this uncertainty. The euro has experienced increased volatility, and European bonds are showing signs of stress as investors question the continent's ability to maintain economic stability without reliable American partnership. Brexit, initially seen as Britain's isolation from European integration, now appears potentially prescient. The United Kingdom's separate relationship with the United States might provide London with advantages that remaining EU members lack, further complicating European unity efforts. Climate cooperation, previously a cornerstone of transatlantic collaboration despite political differences, faces complete collapse. European green energy initiatives, many developed in partnership with American companies, may require complete restructuring to account for reduced American participation. The refugee crisis and migration policies will also be affected. American humanitarian aid and refugee resettlement programs have traditionally complemented European efforts. Without this cooperation, Europe may face increased pressure to handle global humanitarian crises independently. Intelligence sharing, crucial for counterterrorism efforts, represents perhaps the most immediate security risk. Decades of integrated intelligence operations between American and European agencies cannot be easily replaced, leaving potential security gaps that hostile actors might exploit. The coming months will test whether European institutions possess the flexibility and decisiveness required for such fundamental strategic realignment. The European Union's historically slow decision-making processes may prove inadequate for addressing the rapid pace of changing American policy. This transformation represents not merely a policy shift, but a fundamental redefinition of the post-World War II international order that has governed global relations for nearly 8 decades.